Okay, time for some more illogic. Last time we went up against Tony and his mighty Miltanks. Please go check out the video first if you've not done so already. So we went over the Teambuilder and battle in which, spoiler alert, the Bouffalant drove home another victory, another 6-0, thanks to a dominant performance from Gholdengo with help from Arcanine. That brings our record up to 4-1 with a huge plus 21 differential and on the brink of clinching a playoff spot. This time we're going up against the 3-2 Music City Mudkips. Timestamps are in the description. Tyler just won the Beginners League last season, earning him the easy promotion to the main league and an early promising showing with a positive record thus far into the season. There are a couple things that stand out about the team, which I'm sure you'll note if you follow along. Weavile's at the top of the speed tiers, followed by Iron Jugulus, Tinkaton, first round pick Great Tusk, Armarouge, Sea Titan, Breloom, Alomomola, Kingambit, Slowking, and Clodsire. What a bulky team, and what great power behind some of these mods too. I see that Slowking, Sea Titan core, the force behind Iron Jugulus and Kingambit as dark types, the beast that is Great Tusk, the versatility and power of Breloom, which I had been looking at for my draft, and the absolutely disgusting Alomomola Clodsire picked up at the end of the draft. Frankly, with such a well-rounded team, it's tough to see how they've struggled at all this season, but they barely scraped a win past the winless Miltanks, and have dropped a pair of other games, the only other wins coming against the 1-4 Pidgeemporium and a 6-0 Sea Titan sweep. Maybe there are a few other underlying issues to the game plan we can exploit, because at first glance, frankly, everything on this team has a good shot to come and contribute positively, which is something I feel I can very rarely say. That said, it's tough to believe that Weavile will come and have the same usefulness as other mons. His two other Dark Mons can still beat Gholdengo relatively handily, and at extra speed isn't doing anything for itself, as Lycanroc can still outspeed with the Accelerock anyways there too. Add in Sea Titan as the better Ice Shard user, and the dearth of defensive utility, I think it's the least likely to come. Next up, I guess Armarouge. I do respect the power of Armor Cannon, and how Gholdengo, among many others, just cannot switch into it, but what an unfortunate speed tier. Gholdengo and Slytherin can't switch in, but it's forced into Scarf to avoid them walking over it with Shadow Ball or U-turn, plus I have several bulky fire resists like Arcanine, Talonflame, Azumarill, and Garchomp that all come relatively frequently. There's a place for it, but probably not this time. I have a surprisingly solid Kingambit matchup, even with Gholdengo being torn apart by Kowtow, Cleave, or Sucker Punch. Azumarill and Wo-Chen are pretty nice dark resists. Talonflame and Arcanine can provide burns while resisting Iron Head, and avoid Sucker with Will-O-Wisp. Garchomp is a nice check thanks to Rough Skin, Stab Earthquake, and the speed advantage. Slitherwing is another great resist with the ability to have tons of power with close combat, even the ability to U-turn around while still doing Big Chip. Even Gastrodon can tank hits pretty well against it and strike back. Once again, it could come, but it's actually struggling a little bit here, surprisingly. Tinkaton is a weird case. Its move pool can support an offensive approach with Swords Dance and Gigaton Hammer, but doesn't really have the power without setup or the move pool without Terra to break through meaningfully. Similarly, the typing plus access to T-Wave and Rock suggests a defensive approach, but without that much bulk or any recovery aside from potentially leftovers, it'll struggle to sit in front of things. In a combination effort, it'll be very difficult to do anything to, say, Gholdengo or Gastrodon, let alone Garchomp coming in threatening EQ or Arcanine threatening Flare Blitz. It's a decent defensive piece, but there are probably better ones this time. Finally, I do think it's quite likely to see it again after a 6-0 performance last week, but Sea Titan probably isn't it this time. Ice Shard for Garchomp is good, as is of course a Slush Rush Belly Drum Beast with 170 base HP. But I think I've gotten enough respect that folks here should know how tough it is to set up on me like that. Of course, it wouldn't be the first time I got swept by a belly drumming ice type on the channel, but okay, actually, Azu has strong Aqua Jets to respond with, and plenty of bulk. Gholdengo outspeeds outside of snow and tanks all but EQ while hitting back with Make It Rain. Arcanine also, Slitherwing's the same, but doesn't exactly tank those hits, but at least has first impression too. There are a few things I need to bring to prevent that sweep from happening, or at least an aggressive game plan to hamper that from happening in the first place, but I'm not the most concerned. For what to expect though, this is maybe a weird one, but it has only come in week 1, and doesn't look like I'm threatening it at face value here either. Alomomola is actually a pretty great check to Azumarill as long as it can actually do something back to it, pretty much necessitating me to bring Belly Drum to get past it, or I'll suffer Rocky Helmet Recoil over and over, healing up the whole team with Wish 2 while stifling all the rest of my physical attackers. Yikes. Breloom is a tough nut to crack. My grass type being immune to Spore is weak to its other stab, with Mach Punch for priority or close combat to shred non-resists even. I do have Gholdengo as a pretty much perfect answer, but Terra could be her undoing there. A Swords Dance into Terra Blast Fire would suck and could just be game right there. The issue though is the amount of move slots available. As without Terra Blast, we've got the answer in Gholdengo. Without Rock Tomb, Talonflame is a nice answer. Without Bullet Seed, Azu walls it. Maybe he forgoes Spore, the scariest move? Maybe, but I think he won't go without that, nor will he go without Slowking, with or without the Sea Titan that is supporting. A big ol' wall to much of my team and a pivot option. Slowking just makes a lot of sense to come in and wall something while forcing me out thanks to the ridiculous coverage afforded to the Slow Twins. We're going to have to play around that and find out if the investment on it is physical or special, plus the potential water-type regenerator core with the Sunfish. The top three, though, are all just ridiculous to plan for, starting with Iron Jugulus. Dark Pulse and Hurricane are rough enough to deal with. Add an Earth Power and a speed stat that surpasses Garchomp by just a little bit, and we've got some trouble. Special Defense isn't something I'm looking to invest into this matchup otherwise, so what am I doing against this? I really don't feel like relying on Hurricane misses. He's due for a good match in that regard. The biggest threats, though, are going to be the ground types. It's Clodsire and Great Tusk. Clodsire is so awkward for me, especially for Azumarill. If it's Water Absorb, I need to use Ice Spinner, I suppose. And if it's Unaware, I'll need Liquidation to do meaningful damage to that tanky boy. Past that, it's a Great Wall to Goldango, preventing Nasty Plot with Unaware, plus things like Toxtricity or Lycanroc, and can always threaten with Toxic and EQ, a nice combo, plus Hazards. Great Tusk, on the other hand, is the physical wall and physical breaker in one, with stabs that do have resist on my team, but nothing can afford to tank a knockoff. Add in Rapid Spin and or Hazards, plus a speed stat barely suppressing my Goldango and Slitherwing. There is a big problem brewing in that Great Tusk. On my end, Lycanroc yet again struggles to break through here. Great Tusk, Clodsire, Slowking, Alomomola, Breloom. I can't find space for it with all of those big giant threats absolutely coming. Avalugg has a bit of an interesting case here, being a physical wall for several of his threats, but the weakness to fighting and inability to do anything at all to things like Slowking means I can't rely on him for spinning duties. Shame, it would have been nice to body press Kingambit into oblivion. Wochen had a case this week, I think, a grass type going against the water types I'm threatened by with an ability to keep me in the game against the physical attackers, but the weakness to fighting once again stops me short. Add in the flying weakness and inability to meaningfully harm the Iron Jugulus, the ice weakness, plus the ability to be stalled out by Clodsire, and there isn't a solid enough niche for it to fill. It's 3 fighting weaknesses for those counting at home. Yeah, I'm worried about the Great Tusk and Breloom, could you tell? Moving on, I really have been pleased with Garchomp this season, but it's a rough go here, truthfully. 2 Ice Shard users, 2 mods I can't muscle through easily in Great Tusk, and the mods that survive 2 Adamant Bandit EQs and Alomomola, and a surprising lack of defensive utility in the matchup overall. Chomp's resistances don't seem to be around. No electrics, no rocks, fire type isn't great here, so unless I invest in a defense stat, we're a little bit stuck actually. Even then I'll be lacking offense and would be susceptible to being taken advantage of, or just being chipped away anyways. It didn't quite line up with the game plan. No problems there. Finally, same as last season, Arcanine pretty consistently has a good looking matchup, but I can't quite justify it here. It's tough to say what Arcanine does very well here. Beat Armourouge, I guess, but those Great Walls look like they're walling me forever, and I don't much like taking my Great Tusk matchup on a Will-O-Wisp that can miss. Flare Blitz looks pretty good otherwise, admittedly, and I thought about a couple of neat tricks like Justified over Intimidate for 3 dark types, or even Power Herb Solar Beam to hit a Alomomola or Slowking hard, but those seemed a little too niche for what I'm trying to accomplish this time. I hope I'm not going too standard here. It does kind of feel like I'm not reaching out and getting quite as creative as I have in past seasons. I think a part of that is the fear of Terra. Knowing that at any moment I need to adapt to the opponent changing types drastically is a motivating factor to stick to the norm. If I have a solid, consistent game plan, I think we can work around those unexpected twists and turns, or maybe anticipate them. For example, let's look at this Goldango. It isn't particularly heat. Stabs, the psychic coverage for Clodsire might be a little bit out of the norm, plus recover to heal up on great matchups like Alomomola or Slowking. But there's something else here too. That Air Balloon is probably the start of that discussion. It pairs nicely with Psyshock to beat Clodsire and is relatively standard for the Great Tusk. But what about when we know what the opponent's doing? If he knows about this balloon, what can we expect to see? Could Clodsire carry a cheeky Rock Slide for Talonflame, which would also break the balloon? Great Tusk is required to bring a knockoff for this, right? And what about Breloom, who has 0 coverage for me? Surely that's the Terra, probably Fire, right? That would hit a couple of things. This Goldango, as you can see, puts in a lot of work against his team, which is why I want to put speed in it for Breloom, Sea Titan, and Armourouge. But as soon as I'm caught off guard, it all falls apart. The Clodsire breaks my balloon. See if I beat that anymore. I don't even get off meaningful chip, potentially. AV Great Tusk clicks knockoff on the switch. I'm outsped and can't spin block anymore, nor will Make It Rain even 2-hit KO. Breloom Swords dances on the switch. Think I'm staying in on that? This is a tough one, and as much as I would love to abuse Goldango yet again, I'm going to be playing a little more cautiously here, and maybe even fire that Terra Flying early. I haven't exactly shown my hand yet with my own Terra yet. Week 1 I used it somewhat poorly. Week 2 used as a win more, not at all really since then. So maybe I could try being a little bit more aggressive with Goldango by using the Terra Flying. Against Claude, I would only be susceptible to Gunk Shot, Great Tusk, a weak knockoff or a rock coverage move, and Breloom, a neutral Terrifier. I would become weak to ice moves like from Sea Titan or Weavile, but their EQ and Throat Chop already kind of cover me. So that was a lot for a pretty standard Goldango, but I hope that gives some decent insight into some of my thought processes going on here. With that said, though, let's move into some more Unga Boonga sets. How about we run back a couple of interesting choice band sets here? We had the Azumarill week 4 and Slitherwing week 2. Azu put in some work back then, and this time I love the damage output we can create unexpectedly. I did like the idea of Belly Drum again here, but there are a couple things holding me back, mainly that Clodsire. I mentioned it before, but if it's unaware, I definitely don't Doko it unless I go Liquidation, probably. But then I'm lacking coverage on something, especially because I can't risk it going Water Absorb and missing out on Ice Spinner. But then how do I hit the water types? With a choice band, Playrough is doing a minimum of 42% to anything he's got, except for the Fizz-Def Clodsire, in which case it isn't exactly walling my special mons the way he needs it to, so no Shoddy Let's Goldango hit that freely. So yes, that means after rocks, even full Fizz-Def Alomomola has a shot to be 2-hit KO'd by Playrough, and you know nothing else wants to tank that. I wouldn't mind coming in freely on Iron Jugulus and clicking Aqua Jet to test Water Absorb on Clodsire, or just Ice Spinner to try to KO something, or just Playrough to get big damage on literally anything if I hit. Last move isn't the most important. I went with Brick Break as a way to guarantee the Oko on the 4x weaknesses and to break screens in a pinch. Not too bad. You know we're Adamant max attack, almost max HP with a little wiggle room to speed creep King Gambit while resisting Sucker Punch, which is perfect. Finally, water is usually the main suspect here for Terra to boost up those priority Aqua Jets, but this time I'm actually going with Fairy for Playrough. I mentioned there are a few mons that can get away from the 2-hit KO, but with Terra they no longer do, so I could see this as an option when I feel like hitting 90% accurate moves to grab those unexpected chunks. Speaking of grabbing chunks, Slitherwing did not get to show its power in week 2, but this may just be its opportunity. You know how hard close combat hurts from Jolly Band Slitherwing? You thought Playrough calcs were impressive? How about the chance to 2-hit KO all of Great Tusk, Clodsire, Slowking, Armarouge, and Fizz-Def Alomomola? Toss in U-turn when I'm trying to hold the CC, first impression for the emergency priority that surpasses his, an Earthquake for Clodsire and Tinkaton, and a spammable move if Jugulus goes down. We've got a veritable monster on our hands. Tough to see too many options from him too, and we outspeed all but 4 team members. We're also an accidental wall to Great Tusk if we're willing to part with the choice band from Knockoff. As for one of those we don't outspeed, Terra Steel is our answer for Hurricane from Iron Jugulus, as well as Ice Shard from Sea Titan or Weavile. I imagine a scenario where I've CC'd and they try to pick me off with Ice Shard, but I can resist that or a few other moves with Steel. This in particular is a neat trick for Jugulus, which I realized I don't have too many answers to, as well as the reason I changed my next one back to the standard. For a bit, I actually had a second balloon here on Toxtricity, along with Taunt to make it an anti-lead to bully his ground types with Boom Burst or at least prevent rocks from going up. But as I looked at the team I was making and the opportunities he has to set up rock compared to me trying to prevent him from breaking me, in addition to the aforementioned Iron Jugulus problem, I realized I needed something that can outspeed and immediately threaten that Iron Jugulus. I haven't shown Talonflame yet, but it's not quite the same, you know? An electric type outspeeding and threatening Volt Switch, as we see a bit of a vortex forming here, was extremely appealing, especially when Boom Burst should be doing more than enough anyways. After rocks, Boom Burst should be KOing most of the time, or after a U-turn from Slitherwing, so the goal really is to spam Boom Burst first and foremost. Overdrive is amazing damage without the ground types, but both of them very likely I decided on Boom Burst as the main option, with Normal as the Terra type to nab some bigger Okos, really liking these 4 Terra options here so far. After a Terra Normal, we should now be Okoing Weavile, Iron Jugulus, Great Tusk, Armarouge, and Alomomola, in addition to Sea Titan after rocks, plus Breloom, plus 2-hit KOing Slowking, and a chance to 2-hit KO Clodsire and Tinkaton. The final move may seem odd. We've got T-Wave here on a Scarfmon. Frankly, the first 3 moves do everything I want, aside from maybe grabbing Drain Punch or Brick Break for the 4x weaknesses, but I figured I had something better. I can do damage to King Gambit, sure, but it's not a 2-hit KO against max HP even, and there's a possibility of Assault Vest. Instead, he's going to look to outspeed and KO with Sucker Punch. This not only avoids Sucker Punch, which should be likely against my offensive-looking team, but also slow it down for things like Gastrodon, and potentially give me a shot to get away with even more later depending on some full paras. Seems cute, may not come into play, but Boom Burst is my main option anyways, very easily 2-hit KOing at Alomomola and Great Tusk impressively enough, hoping we can have some of these mons start to break for each other reliably. And of course, how are they going to do that without the support of our final 2 members? Talonflame here again. It's probably looking pretty standard here, but I hope its value is seen week after week. I'm pretty much picking between 6 to 7 different moves, outspeeding my opponent's whole team, walling a couple choice mons this time, Breloom and Great Tusk without rock coverage, pivoting around, stopping or getting rid of hazards, providing flying offense. Too good. This time it's Brave Bird for the fighting types, or a more likely Will-O-Wisp to at least leave that parting gift or chip other mons to get them in range of Boom Burst or Close Combat among others, Defog for those rocks I anticipate being prioritized, and Roost to keep up the longevity as I sit in front of a couple other mons. I would have liked to find room for Taunt, sure. The ability to prevent Clodsire from clicking Toxic on me would be nice if I could find the room for that move, but I think I'd rather be aggressive with my turns, and in a back and forth, Taunt isn't preventing rocks because it's probably going to be too late, but rather it would be blanking one of his advantage turns. That may seem a bit convoluted to say I'm settling for removing them after the fact, but the truth is there will be down turns where I can either fire an attack or set my team up by removing rocks. I'd rather do that. U-turn would have been nice too, getting into banders when possible, but I couldn't find room there either compared to getting a clutch burn off. For Terra, Steel was a pretty interesting option to resist ice and flying like Slitherwing can do, but I settled on keeping flying to power up Brave Bird in the occasion that I need to try and clean up with Brave Bird, or I lost my Toxic Scarf in Slitherwing and need this to KO Iron Jugulus, that sort of thing. Simple ease, and at the same time, the same thing is true here with the return of Gastrodon, finally. It's been a little bit of time, first time since week 1 for this lug. I've got a bunch of Fizz Def this time to try and tank a Great Tusk hit if possible, plus the standard Recover and Rocks. I chose Rocks over Spikes this week. I'm still finding I don't have the best answers to Iron Jugulus, so chipping that for 25% seems more important. Add in more damage to Sea Titan, and only 1 turn of setup needed. It's just the better option for this matchup, I think. As for moves, I knew I wanted a ground move, so Ice Beam was the natural complement to hit Iron Jugulus and Breloom, and then I had to think about the physical or special ground move. I have higher special attack, but I went with EQ to hit Clodsire more consistently. It'll have to be Fizz Def to avoid the 2-hit KO, and we still outspeed with the Relaxed nature anyways. EQ hits Tinkaton harder, but Armarouge and Kingambit less so, but Kingambit may become with AV anyways. Great Tusk is hit by Ice Beam anyways. It's a bit of a toss-up, so we'll see if I regret that or not. Same with the Psychic versus Psyshock on the Goldengo. Finally, Terra Ground may make that point moot anyways. I thought about things like Flying or Fairy to get more extremes or neutrals, but figured despite the Ice weakness, it would be worth it to boost up EQ's power in a pinch, similar to Talonflame. That's the team. I'm surprised by how tough it was to put this together for a solid Mudkips team who needs 1 upset W in the final 3 weeks to try and make playoffs. Let's go make sure that's not us. Well, Sea Titan did come, along with Kingambit, and they're here in place of Alomomola and Great Tusk? The KO leader in Paldea, not brought against me in Johto here today. Not too much of a worry. This does lessen the value of Toxtricity overall, plus the balloon on Goldengo and Goldengo overall, while increasing the value of my physical attackers, especially that Slitherwing, whose CC should be claiming 1 against pretty much anything, or the most furry U-turns. As far as leads go, remember I did have a balloon Toxtricity as the initial lead. But what about now? I'm expecting, I suppose, either Clodsire for hazards or Iron Jugulus as the offensive lead, for which I don't have switches, and because it's 3 weeks in a row that someone has led the Dark type that with at least 100 base speed that just kind of destroys me. Ice Spinner will hit both and keep Slitherwing in the back, so I think I'm going to try to lead Azumarill and see what we can do about that. Good luck, have fun to Tyler. Ooh, that's a Breloom. I finally got the lead matchup wrong. My switch in to this is, well, I guess it's Goldengo, but if this is something that, like Terrifier with Rock Tomb for Talon, I am in big trouble. Not to mention, I wanted to save that balloon for Clodsire. I guess we don't have much of a choice. I don't even need to save that for the Great Tusk anymore. Anyways, if Goldengo doesn't wall this, its usefulness in the overall matchup is questionable anyways. I think we're just going to go to it. So we hop in there. And Bullet Seed, good thing I swapped, though it costs us the balloon, and it will overall be 30% that we take here as well. Can I risk the turn 2 Terrifier? I think I swapped this in the first place because I was prepared to lose it to that. Psyshock doesn't actually always OHKO, and Make It Rain will do a ton to whatever the switch in is, or if he Terras, I think that's just probably going to be the best neutral damage. Make It Rain, please don't have Sash, please don't Terra into fire. Neither. He goes to Clodsire, and he's going to take 35%. That's a Spadef set for sure. Good. Okay. That means Psyshock would do an absolute chunk to it. Is that what I want to do? If I take an EQ, we're kind of in trouble, right? I mean, I'm taking a bunch of damage from that. I would tank it, but then I can't exactly check Breloom anymore thanks to Bullet Seed doing 20 to 50. Well, if I don't hit Clodsire now, it's a bit liable to tank even more, though of course I could try to lure it in later. Once again, Goldango's usefulness is dubious anyways. I'd like to get the damage off, and I'm willing to trade damage onto me or hazards for it, so let's just try that. Psyshock brings the friend-shaped fellow down to 7%, and the hazard of choice is T-Spikes. That's interesting. Lucky for me, I do have the poison type that I brought to help out with that. Very nice. 3 immunities to that hazard, including 2 that can remove, 1 on switch and 1 with defog. We can work with that, and we can also work with Claude being this low. Thanks to Unaware, which I know this has to be, thanks to that calc, we don't even need to go Psyshock again to KO this. Make It Rain is the strongest move to hit a potential switch, so I think we're going to try that out. King Gambit, that makes sense, it works out too. King Gambit's going to come in and take 20%. No AV here, and no lefties either. This is obviously a concerning juncture though. King Gambit is in against Goldango, and that's tough. And imagine if it sets up like a Swords Dance here, or it's just a Banded Kowtow Cleave. I don't actually have the greatest switch into King Gambit, however much I was talking about before in the team preview that I thought I had a pretty good King Gambit matchup. Staring it down now, I'm not sure. Maybe I overestimated my matchup against this. I think there are a couple things that come to mind though. Azumarill resists Dark, but I really don't care for it to be poisoned by T-Spikes. And Talonflame, which doesn't tank a hit as well, but it should be threatening with a burn at least. There are a couple ways it can do that. Slitherwing also resists, but I want health on that too. Gastro can tank the hit, but absolutely does not want to be poisoned. I think it may be worth it to use Toxtricity's health then to do some scouting. It would take a strong banded attack to KO me, and if that's what he's up to, I'd rather know now anyways, especially if he's locked in. I think removing the T-Spike should be a top priority anyways, and I don't think I'm going to allow that Clodsire another chance to get them up anyways. So I think I'm just going to go for it, and we go into Toxtricity. And it goes better than I could have hoped. Terra Steel and Sucker Punch fails. Absolutely perfect. Maybe concerned about Focus Blast, maybe a bit of a misclick on the Terra from what I recall. Either way, it works out as well as it possibly could have. We'll take that. That's also 1 less Shadow Ball switch, which is pretty neat. But now what? Shadow Ball's neutral on it from now on, yes, but Jugulis is still a resist. A stronger Iron Head is going to make it tougher to swap into, but this is so much more preferable to Breloom going Fire or King Gambit going, say, Fairy on a close combat. Jugulis powering up its stabs, or Sea Titan powering through a check. Oh, this was a big W. But we're still kind of in a turn-by-turn decision-making process here as we try and figure out where we're going next with this King Gambit. Toxtricity did make it out, but can I Volt Switch out? Sucker Punch a second turn in a row aside. There is also a Clodsire out there I cannot afford to let recover while low. If that's the case, I need to double out, anticipating a switch into that, but something that can also cover for King Gambit staying in. With T-Spikes gone, one of my water types would make sense to me, and to make sure Iron Jugulis isn't invited in, I think Azumarill would be my best answer here as a nice little neutral play here. Another Sucker Punch. Wonder if he's locked. We don't have any damage numbers to confirm that. Well, this is kind of awkward. I was hoping swapping out of Toxtricity would have resulted in drawing out a check to it, and now that I think about it, Belly Drumming here would have probably been game aside from Sashes if I brought it. Oh man, sorry Azu. So, what's coming in here now? I'm guessing he's locked in, and if he's seeing this in, he's going to have to swap again. Into what? I do still want to cover at least a little bit for it staying in and not scarfed, but what's the Azu check? Breloom, since I'm not clicking Play Rough here, I guess? No. Slowking makes the most sense, right? If that's the case, what do I go into? Goldango needs to be saved here, and not into King Gambit, so my other stab super effective move comes from a mon that also resists Dark still. So I think Slitherwing is my play. This may seem like a pretty weird triple switch, but hopefully my logic was relatively sound there and not just ill. And we are going to get the faster swap out, important to know, and he goes into Clodsire. Very interesting. Maybe trying to catch a water move with Water Absorb, maybe trying to just stop Belly Drum despite the low health, maybe just a sack. In any case, Choice Band Slithering is so strong thanks to the Make It Rain and Psyshock damage earlier, we know that this is fully Spadef and not Fizdef, so U-turn will either KO the Clodsire here or chunk something else as we get a free switch going around. And he is going to let the Clod go down. Sorry to the pseudo-league mascot here, and with this up 6-5, I see no remaining electric immunities. Toxtricity is the free switch here, though it is of course matched by Iron Jugulis, who even without the booster energy is still threatening with a Scarf Earth Power. With no booster energy, there is a chance that this is Scarf. He may not know that I'm Scarfed at this point either. I just mentioned how free Toxtricity looks right now, and as one of the 2 mons faster than non-Scarf Jugulus, I would like to save this and maybe find that out. So I think no matter what, he's got to go Earth Power here. The question is, do I swap out into a Talonflame who doesn't really threaten this? Or do I stay in and Terra Normal to survive a hit and knock it out with Boom Burst? That would be a neat trick. But I don't really see any setup on this mon. Maybe I don't need to do that quite yet. Instead, I'd like to see if this is indeed Scarf. Talonflame has a bit of use in burning the physical attackers and checking Breloom, but I think it's worth, and I'm willing to go risk that right now. The Earth Power was pretty obvious. Talonflame, I think, made good sense here. Don't know if this is locked in or not, or if this even threatens the Jugulus out. So what should be the follow-up move here? I have an idea about this and testing if it's Scarf. If not, he goes for Dark Pulse here. Toxtricity would be able to tank that. If he swapped moves, we outspeed with Volt Switch and get the momentum back against it. I keep risking Tox against Dark moves, but this doesn't seem to be a boosted attack, and I'm confident Earth Power isn't coming out again. That, and just like against the Burbs, it's going to be probably a Slow Twin coming out, as there it is there, that comes in to take Talonflame. And we also may have noted there that in the double switch, Talonflame was outsped. So my fear there is confirmed that that is, in fact, a Scarf Iron Jugulus. Very, very important and good information to know that I didn't definitely just notice just now as I went over the match here in hindsight. Okay, so this is definitely a more favorable matchup. That we didn't confirm the item on Jugulus, okay, we just did. Yeah, I see myself past me. We figured it out. We're better players in retrospect than in-game, but that's okay. I think we're doing pretty well here, actually, anyways. We haven't even gone over the state of the matchup as of this point, so why don't we worry now? Gholdengo did take a little bit of chip, but that's the only mon that's taken any chip right now, actually, as opposed to my opponent who has a whole Clodsire down, and we've already seen a little bit of chip on Kingambit in addition to the Terra. So 10 turns in, we're looking very, very good. Plus, as we keep saying, the ground type is down. Volt Switch is so free here, no reason not to. So I think we're just going to go ahead and click the easy button. Protect. If you can afford to run that, you definitely don't have enough coverage here, right, for everything we've got? Especially because we know Chilly Reception is on the moveset somewhere. But hey, I'm definitely willing to take that chip, find out the investment on Slowking next turn. This realist didn't do much of anything for him, this Protect. So next turn, Volt Switch, yeah, that's a ton of Spadef investment, and into Gholdengo pretty easily here on the Psychic. Again, felt pretty good about going into Gholdengo because with Protect on the moveset, didn't think there would be enough room for things like fire coverage on that moveset. It would probably require 3 different types of coverage, plus Chilly Reception for me to be particularly scared of swapping things in. So even better, yeah, he has coverage for Toxtricity and Slitherwing, but those are the 2 mons that pivot out on this thing, and the lack of other coverage means Gholdengo should be free into this, in addition to Breloom. We don't know the 4th move yet, but I feel pretty good about that. Even better, assuming that this is going to be an opportunity to recover up, I can get back up to full. And even better than that, he's going to reveal Slack Off as that last move, meaning we know the full set. What would he have done if I brought Wo Chen? No problem. Free attack here. Or is it? I see another opportunity for Slithering to make a splash, as if he tries to avoid the Shadow Ball, he's probably going into Kingambit or Iron Jugulus. If I'm sure he isn't clicking Psychic, this should be a very safe move into Slitherwing, so I think that seems like a lot of sense. We're really going to wait one more turn here. Shadow Ball made sense, but this was more likely for him to switch out. However, it is, of course, the slow switch, the Chilly Reception, so we get to see what we're going into. Decent move here, being willing to take the hit that he knew was coming, knowing he could just regenerate back up. And he's into Iron Jugulus. This was another problem with me staying in anyways, is I could safely swap into one of his Dark Mons here potentially, that would have otherwise put Gholdengo in a tough spot. I don't really have great switch-ins to this though, we talked about that in the Teambuilder. Jugulus itself is obviously tough for Slitherwing, but well, I'm a little surprised we actually got to the situation I described in the Teambuilder, but here we are. I was kind of hoping this would have happened under different circumstances, but he shows enough confidence in Jugulus to bring it in here on the safe switch from Slowking. A safe play would be to go to Gholdengo and then back to Slitherwing, but I'm going to do it. It takes a choice band to OHKO this from full, which is where we're at, so the item choice matters. Removing the 4x flying weakness means Steel was also a great Terra-type choice. I haven't exactly used Terra aggressively or particularly well at all, so let's see how this goes. Terra Steel, Hurricane, please don't confuse. It doesn't, and we take out what I'm perceiving as the biggest threat on the team. Thank goodness that worked out. Slithering really coming through for me there. Very awesome, of course, in the snow and all. That does mean that Sea Titan will be the next one out. That makes sense to me. Slush Rush active means it outspeeds my whole team. I know the particular coverage it has for me. Talonflame is going to be the easy switch on EQ. Being a steel type, of course, that is what was coming out. If not, it was going to be superpower, and really don't want to risk that either. Imagine getting the burn on that. And you know what? I'm willing to stay in this turn too. Even if snow is still up, I'm still willing to stay in to get that burn. Worst it's going to do is liquidation and potentially receive a burn from that anyways. And otherwise, it may be choice locked or may not even have the great coverage there unless it belly drums up. So we're going to just lay down the burn. Or Slowking could come in. Yeah, that checks out. But with the Slowking's full set revealed, that should be an easy switch back into Gholdengo on the Psychic. It really is feeling we're just one step ahead at pretty much every point here, which is pretty nice. If that's the case, no need to overpredict. I think at this point I can just Shadow Ball away to try and get some damage to stick to this Slowking here. We do see burn, so lefties isn't going to be helping. 48% with a Spadef drop. Good, great damage, and good decision to Chilly Reception back out into King Gambit. That does make a lot of sense, yes. And we do see Supreme Overlord as well, which is very interesting, not Defiant here. So we're a little safer to defog if we need to. Now, we're going to be just a little more straightforward here near the end of the match, bringing it ahead. I need to get this thing burned as soon as I can and keep Gastron healthy just in case. So we're going to go into Talonflame this time. We've shown a few different answers. We're going Talon on the Stealth Rock. Okay, that's neat. So this should not be choice locked. Either way, I'm just going to Willow, and thankfully here we don't miss. Else we'd have to talk about what to do after that, including probably pray for a Flame Body burn. But instead, we only take about a third from that boosted Kowtow. Knowing that it is Supreme Overlord instead of Defiant, we can then pretty safely defog on the follow-up, knowing we can take another hit. And even better, it's on the Sucker Punch attempt, so that's 3 times that's failed, funnily enough now. Expecting him to switch at this point, I think I can just roost up. But he does actually stay in. We're going to eat another Kowtow in a worse roll. This doesn't really look like a winning fight. I know I said I wanted to preserve Gastro's health, but I should be eating these pretty well now that we know the full move set here. I'm pretty sure that's going to be a steel move as its last move. So I actually think that it's good enough to go into Gastro, and even better though, with snow going down, it's going to be back into Slowking for him as we each switched out for what seems like the millionth time. I actually don't know if I like this position though. Gastro can't touch Sea Titan right now, so if he sets up the snow with Chilly Reception, we could actually be in trouble. The most damage I could do to it would be EQ outside of snow, but in snow. So either I can swap out this turn to set up for taking it out after it's brought in, maybe with Talonflame switch in to burn it, or I can do the damage to it behind Slowking with Stealth Rock. I chose the latter, and I'm going to be heavily rewarded from the extremely hesitant to protect from Slowking. Those are some free rocks for me. Plus, it's going to be a free switch out the next turn. You shouldn't have. Into what? I'm still trying to prep for this Titan coming in, so what handles that? Slithering, no. Gholdengo, no. Toxtricity, no. They're all EQ bait. Gastron, no. Talonflame isn't bad. I mentioned it before as a way to burn a third team member, but it's also good for Breloom too alongside Gholdengo. I guess more importantly, it's already hurt, so Ice Shard might still KO anyways, and if I miss, we're in a bad spot. Plus, I'd be a sitting duck if Slowking just sits here in front of Gastro. I see an opportunity instead for my last team member, who should be doing a lot of damage to Sea Titan, even with a defense boost, or threaten that Slowking that's out in front of us, too. Azu is going to come in next. There we go. It's going to come in on a relatively soft Psychic, only 30%. I don't like it being chipped too, but I think we've actually maneuvered to a spot where we can take a KO, so long as we don't miss. Player off may not KO King Gambit or Oko Sea Titan, but Breloom certainly cannot switch in. What about Slowking, the bulky boy? From the Shadow Ball damage earlier, I could say that this is a Spadef Slowking. Max HP, but no physical defense investment, or very, very little. In that case, Play Rough should be doing a minimum of 79%. That's how much I see right there, so as long as we don't miss after a turn of Protect, which is going to scout Play Rough and lure him potentially to being comfortable, we do in fact KO. No misses today, no sir. 6-3, most importantly, no snow, which means I don't see a great chance for him to take this game anymore. It should be straightforward for a bit here again. Breloom is out, which means we have the very good answer to it, potentially breaking a sash as well with the rocks. Gholdengo on the Spores, and then so I'm not lowering my special attack for possible Sea Titan follow-up. I Shadow Ball a couple of times. to take care of the Breloom. We know Bullet Seed's not going to be doing too much. Smart to conserve some health on King Gambit, though, too. Even if it resists, that bit of chip would not have helped. Though it is burned, of course. So I think I can go into Gastrodon, who will be able to wall each of his last mons quite well. EQ is going to do quite a bit of damage to him because that is super effective here. And we're tanking these hits pretty easily. We got 42%, bringing him down to, after the burn, it's going to be just 7%. From here, I can recover a couple of times to stay healthy while the burn takes down King Gambit. Technically is going to be a Talonflame KO from Will-O-Wisp, ravaging it over several turns. And that's going to leave just Sea Titan, who's going to take rocks damage. And then after that is going to Belly Drum. Oh no. Oh, I'm getting flashbacks here. Especially because after the berry heals it up a little bit, Earthquake does not KO. I've been in this situation before, a Belly Drumming Ice type, as his last mon, after I've been dominating him all game. I've lost these before. But I did it by switching on Substitute and letting him Belly Drum after that, and him outspeeding the rest of the team. This time, I attacked with EQ on the Belly Drum, no snow, so it will not be outspeeding, and I have banded First Impression and Aqua Jet in the back for priority. Plus, with the follow-up attack here, Play Rough only doing 80% to a fully physical defensive Gastrodon. Another EQ finishes the job before we start getting worried, and we can take the 6-0 win over the Music City Mudkips. GG to Tyler. The team is super scary, but frankly, I felt like I was in the zone this time. It's really tough to nitpick and find misplays here, and every single team member contributed positively. Toxtricity baited in a ground move, chipped Slowking, and absorbed the T-Spikes. Azu took out Slowking before it could set up the snow. Talonflame immune to 2 ground attacks, removed rocks, and burned Slowking into range of Play Rough, plus neutered King Gambit for the entire match. Gastrodon walled King Gambit, took a +6 attack while KOing Sea Titan back. Goldango immune Spore and took out Clodsire and Breloom almost by itself while chipping Slowking into Azu range. But come on, that Slithering Terra Steel play was nice. U-turn KO'd Clodsire plus the Terra Steel to Oko, the biggest threat on his team. Too good. Let's go Slitherwing. Truly a team effort though. I felt so good about the squad here, and even got literally every single team member up to a neutral KD on the season thanks to the Talon and Gastro KOs. That'll do it for this week. That brings us up to a 5-1 record with a +27 differential, the same as the undefeated Noctowls in the other conference, and enough to push us to the #1 seed in Johto. That also clinches us a playoff spot, with the last couple matches only determining seeding. This match may not look like it matters much for us compared to the decisive Week 9, but Week 8 is against the upstart Lorraine Lairon, who have a revelation this season. A pleasant surprise at 3-1 before dropping 2 very close games in the last week against 2 good teams. They need to win at least one of the final 2 weeks to have a shot at playoffs, but maybe we can increase that drama a little bit with a win. We'll see you then.